Fletcher Tabato.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thanks for the response on the other side of the table, the chamber. Thanks, gentlemen. Mr Chair, the whole premise of this legislation and the logic that we are given in order to debate today, the whole logic behind it is we are told that the $1,000 contribution no longer is sufficient, or actually it's unwarranted because it doesn't do enough to engage people into KiwiSaver. People aren't coming into KiwiSaver anymore. This $1,000 contribution isn't doing what we want it to, and it's costing us too much money. That's the logic that this government provides this House today, and why we're debating this. On top of that, the policy advice that we were given and the government was given was actually told, sir, to ignore the implications to saving in terms of the national interest for New Zealand. So don't look at that. Just analyse why we should get rid of this KiwiSaver contribution, because we need an excuse. So my challenge, sir, and I won't take all of my time because it's a simple challenge to this government, is to consider the fact that based on the premise of your logic today, you don't need retrospective legislation. You don't need to bring this days ago. There's no reason for it under the premise of the logic that you've provided this House today. Give New Zealanders time. You've put it out there publicly now. Give them time so that they can engage in their savings. Well, we've heard such impassioned contributions, meaningful contributions from this side of the House about who is missing out. And sir, so that I focus on this clause solely, I'll just repeat that it was said. I won't go into the detail again. But let's use another piece of logic. Let's line up the changes in legislation, which is what the two SOPs have suggested. Let's line them up. We're bringing these welfare changes in a couple of years. Let's give New Zealanders the same opportunity to react. Let's give them a time to understand that now's the time to get into the KiwiSaver program. Because I know cynically how do we get New Zealanders to get into KiwiSaver? Well, my cynical response will be that this government will make it compulsory. Don't do that. Give them a real reason, give them that incentive that our youth need, and let's even up the playing field. There is no need, under the logic provided by this government to this House, for the very reason for this debate, is that it's no longer an incentive. Well, let's bring it in just before the election and let the government members stand in front of the public and say to them, we're taking away your KiwiSaver when it's fresh in the public's mind. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Mr Chair.
Chris Hipkins.
Chairman, and I'm very pleased to speak to the amendment that I have put forward to Clause 2, which would move the commencement date of the main part of this legislation from the 21st of May 2015, Budget Day, through to the 21st of June 2015. So it would give people just over a year who haven't had the opportunity to take up the kickstart to do so. And I want to particularly address my comments and speaking to this amendment to the 5 new national members on the other side of the House. Those 5 national members all campaigned under the same slogan, which was they promised to be the strong voice for insert electorate name here, in John Key's national government. They had advertisements up and down the country and on their cars campaigning. Chris Bishops has got one still in the basement with the slogan on it. It sits in the basement now because he's given up, but it had to be a strong voice in John Key's national government. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear that strong voice. Let's hear them stand up and say why they think that the Kiwis who haven't yet signed up to KiwiSaver shouldn't get the $1,000 kickstart. Let's hear them stand up and explain why this legislation needs to be retrospectively backdated to stop Kiwis who haven't signed up being able to get the $1,000 kickstart. The amendment that I have put forward would give them a year to do so. And if the government think that this is an unfair advantage, say it. Let's hear it. Let's hear them say that, because let's actually think about the practical implications of this. If somebody on Thursday, now it's still Thursday in the House according to the rules of the House, so if somebody today in the rules of the House, which was actually Thursday in the real world, signed up at 1:30. So they went out on their lunch break and they signed up for KiwiSaver at 1:30. They get $1,000 for doing so. If somebody signed up right now, before this bill has even finished its passage through the House, they don't get the $1,000. We're talking a matter of an hour. How is that fair? Anyone from the government, I'm happy to hear how they think that's fair. It isn't. It isn't. If the government really believed in this change, and they really thought that this was necessary, they would at least give the New Zealanders who haven't had the chance to sign up the opportunity to do so. Here's another example and another reason why Kiwis should be given extra time to take up the measure, and why my amendment is well and truly justified. If a child is born into a middle or higher income earning family, or has been born there, say, in the last 6 months to a year, and their parents took up the opportunity to sign them up to KiwiSaver, then they're going to get the $1,000. On the other hand, somebody who has been working their way up in a minimum wage job to get themselves to the point where they may have just got to that point around about now, where they can finally afford to sign up to KiwiSaver, they're not going to get it. So this reinforces an inequality in the system. It says to somebody, if you're born into a family, had the good fortune in the last few years to be born into a family who can afford to sign you up to KiwiSaver right when you're born, you're going to get an advantage compared to someone who is working really hard and potentially at the point now where they can finally sign up to KiwiSaver. They could have been working towards it. They're not going to get the $1,000 kickstart that somebody who has had the good fortune to be born into a family who could afford it is going to get. And that is unfair. So why not give those people who are on low incomes, who have been delaying signing up into KiwiSaver until they were in a financial position to do so, why not give them a year? Why not just give them a year to actually see if they can make it across that hurdle? Why not be fair? David Bennett says it's not fair. David Bennett's about the only member on that side of the House that I'm willing to hear criticism from on KiwiSaver, because he's one of the only people who isn't actually signed up to KiwiSaver on the other side of the House. As my colleague Chris Farfoy pointed out, he's either very principled or very stupid. Probably the latter. But the...
A point of order, David Bennett.
Yes, from an inane member like that, I'm not accepting that comment.
Order. The member will sit down. The member will sit down. Now, I'm going to give the member one... First of all, he's going to withdraw and apologise for being disorderly during his point of order, and when he's done that, he will have one chance to raise a proper point of order. David Bennett.